For Sarah Michelle Gellar, 1995 was a year of change. The native New Yorker left All My Children and headed west. But Hollywood didn't exactly roll out the red carpet.
I've been out here about 6 months, and I was, really getting a lot of doors closed to my face. It was really hard. You get that thing, you come off a soap, you have an Emmy, and it doesn't mean anything out here. And I was really struggling.
But Sarah's days of struggle were numbered, thanks to a casting call for a new television show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The series was based on the 1992 movie of the same name.
I had gone on this general meeting with Fox. They said, oh, we have this project coming up. We'd love you to meet on it, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I said, oh, like the movie? And they said, no, not like the movie. And I said, I'd love to, but I had finally gotten a job, and I was going to Australia for 2 months to do this movie of the week, which was an incredible experience. I just turned 18. I was off in Australia, my first job by myself, and just...
They like to have a good time.
And, yeah, they like to have, and I was legal. 18 is legal in Australia. And, we were filming at the beach, and I didn't want to miss out on it. And I'd finished the project, and my manager called and said, look, they're getting to the end of casting for Buffy. You're really right for it, but you have no guarantees. Like, do you want to come back? And it was Carnival out there. And I'd always wanted to go, and I had my heart set on going. And for some reason, I was like, okay, I'll come home.
Smart move. Sarah met with Buffy creator Joss Whedon and the producers of the television show.
And they called me that night and said, we want you to screen test. I'm like, this is like a Cinderella story. This is how it's supposed to happen. I have this feeling. I come home. And they called me about 3 days later and said, we changed our mind. And I was like, okay, we don't want you to test for Buffy. We want you to test for Cordelia. And I said, I need to think about it. Because I just come off 3 years of playing this stereotypical bad girl character. And I thought, well, if I do this now, am I ever going to be able, to do anything else? Cut to 3 years later when I'm begging for the role in Cruel Intentions and no one can see me as the bad girl. But I said, I pass. I don't want to do it.
Did they have a different Buffy they wanted?
They didn't have anyone. They were going to test Buffy's and Cordelia's on the same day. Okay. But they wanted me to test for Cordelia. And I said, I don't want to do it. And I sat back and I read the pilot again. And there was something really special about it. And I said, I don't have a job. It's just a pilot. If it doesn't turn out well, it won't get picked up. I don't have to worry about it. It's, it's the WB. It was kind of an unheard of network at the time. Okay, I'll go and I'll screen test.
Sarah had no idea what was in store for her.
I had left the test that night, and they called me and they said, okay, there's good news and there's good news. The good news is we want to hire you for Cordelia. But we didn't find a Buffy. So if you want to come back in, we're going to start reading Girls on Saturday. You're the only person they responded to come back in now that you have a better understanding of the show. And that's a very risky thing to do, because then sometimes what happens is they say you have this job, but then they see you as something else, but they don't really see you as that, and you could risk really losing both roles. Mm-hmm. So I came back in on Saturday, and I read, and I worked for about 2 hours with them. I would go in, they'd give me notes, I'd go out, I'd see 2 or 3 more girls come in, I'd go back in. This went on for 3 or 4 more days. I went in Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and finally, after probably 7 hours of auditioning all told, they said, okay, we're going to test again, we want you to come back in. But the way a screen test works when you have a studio and a network is you test for one company first and then the next. And I said, well, I'm only going to do it if I can get guarantees that I'm going to go to the network automatically. And they said, we won't give that to you. I said, fine, I'm stepping back, I can't do this anymore, I'll be Cordelia. They said, please, please, please come. So I went to the studio on Friday, and then I had to wait till Monday to go to the network. There were 2 girls, and the way they do it, it's so hard the way they do it out here. They bring both girls in. The first girl goes in, and they tell her, please wait. Second girl goes in, they say, please wait. Then they say, Sarah, we'd like you to come back in again. I say, other girl, you can go home. I mean, it's horrible. It's a horrible process.
But the process got even worse.
And so they said they want me to come back in and read one more time. And I broke down in tears, and I said, I can't do this. I'll be Cordelia. I'll be so happy. I can't. I'm doubting myself. I feel horrible, and I'm sobbing, and the mascara is just running down my face, and the snot's dripping. And please come in. Please come in. I can't do this. So they dragged me in, and I walked in, and it's a room full of about 30 people, and they all started applauding and said, congratulations, you got the role. And,
Man,
and then I just started crying harder. Then it was just...
I mean, that you really had to jump through hoops. I mean, come on.
And I will never let them forget it. I remind them all the time.
What do you say to Joss?
I just remind them all the time how unsure of me they were, how they made me, they tortured me, so I just get to torture them back.
The torture didn't end when production began.
We shot the pilot, and the pilot was a disaster. It was... I can't even begin to tell you, just a debacle of epic proportions. I mean... It was supposed to be a 6-day shoot. It became 9 days. The studio wanted to shut us down. And then they announced that we were going to be a mid-season replacement. And the pity looks that I got from people, oh, honey, mid-season replacement on the WB, you'll get a job next year. I mean, literally, there's my favorite story of all was I met Kiefer Sutherland a couple years ago with some friends. We were all having dinner, and we were talking, and he said, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm doing this pilot, called Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And he said, I think my dad was in that movie. And I said, yeah, he was. And he's out there making a television show of that movie. And he looks at me and he goes, you seem talented. You'll get another job next year. And I finally ran into him like 6 years later. He's now on my favorite show. I'm obsessed with 24. And both of our shows were shooting on the same lot. And I got to go up to him and he said, well, guess I was wrong about that one.
Despite the doubters, the cast went to work on the first season of Buffy. After shooting the first 12 episodes, Sarah went off to film the teen thriller I Know What You Did Last Summer. Buffy hadn't aired yet, and Sarah still didn't know if anyone would watch.
We were filming in this really small town in North Carolina. They didn't even get the WB because WB didn't have that much clearance in those days. So I would call home like, is anybody watching the show? Does anybody like the show? And she's like, yeah, I think people like it. It's okay. No clue what was going on, like waiting in pins and needles to see if the show was even going to get picked up for another season.
When we return, how to charm the boss.
No producers and network of a show like to hear you talk about the fact that you think their decision's really stupid and lame.
And later, Sarah opens up about the love of her life.
I don't want to pretend like it's a secret, and I don't want to pretend like it's something I want to hide.